Hello everyone, Burb here. Yesterday, Cygames announced a patch that's going to be releasing on July 1st that changes many aspects about this game, including the way we're going to be building parents from now on, as well as various career buffs and the skill changes that we are going to be talking about today. The full patch notes includes a few more things. I highly suggest you watch that. I humbly request you watch that. I thought I did a pretty good job, and I had a lot of help from the Accord and the Uma.Guide people, along with JJ from Team Velocity and Bastende, who's a friend of a stream. They all helped me make sure that this is as accurate as possible because Cygames was rather vague on the global patch notes releases. However, we were able to cross-reference it with various different 1.5 to second anniversary changes and kind of piecewise put stuff together to figure out what they were actually adding to the game. For example, the stuff we're going to be doing today are the skill changes. And basically all Cygames has certain skill conditions and their effects are going to be changes. But when we added through all the different patches that JP was going on, we found out that basically these are the conglomerate of the 1.5 and second anniversary skill changes minus the evolutions. We will most likely not be getting evolutions in this patch, but we will be getting most of the second anniversary skill changes. Now, technically, as a disclaimer, this is all speculation. Anyone saying that this is 100% going to happen is incorrect because Cygames, because they're being vague, could just pick and choose which ones that they actually want to do. They could do not all the skill changes. They could only do a few of them, and they could do this for a few reasons. One, just because of coding limitations. If it's hard to port into the game at this point, they may just wait until later where the game is in a closer state to when JP had it. Or they could go and not want to go and change the meta so drastically at this time. So these are the second anniversary skill changes. You will need to prepare for these eventually. Most likely, these are the changes going to be happening in 7.1, but technically, I have to say, they could just pick and choose, but everything seems to just be perfectly aligning with the JP skill list for the second anniversary skill changes, along with a few additional ones. Okay, that's my disclaimer. I know I've been, this is going to happen on 7.1. I've said this many times, but this is after CM15, so don't remake your aces unless you really want to remake them with Throne. The buffs to these skills will not be put in until the Sprint CM afterwards. I have tried to organize these in a way that I find useful to me, and I hope it's useful to you. I know I've been leapfrogged, but unfortunately I'm American, so I had to go to sleep. But I will be going and delving into one, meta implications, and two, trying to explain the various different conditions and what it means for the various different characters that have the skills and for the roles that have it. So I hope there's some additional value that I'm giving you, not just telling you, hey, these skills are now good, right? I'm going to try to go and tell you what's actually being changed so that you can go and learn and make your own determinations for yourself. For the Uma buffs as well, if your Oshi's on this list, most likely they just get much, much better. And it's really nice for them to put them out early so you have an extra 6 months to go and play your Oshi, especially in a position where there's less powerful horses in the game. One of the biggest ones is Special Week. Mumu is very, very happy about this one, I'm sure. But basically, her ultimate goes and changes from target speed to current speed. We talked about this with Taiki Shuttle camping. But basically, current speed just gets added post-calculations instead of target speed, which means it's not really affected by your current speed. So if the problem with Special Week now, and it's not really a problem, it's just you really only got either the speed or the acceleration at any time, because if it procced early because you passed early, that's the better scenario. You would get your acceleration, and then if it passed late, it was still a gold speed skill. So it was still perfectly fine. Now it's current speed. So now if you pass early, it's incredibly powerful because current speed just basically jumps your speed an additional 0.35. So it's akin to speed carryover at the time that it actually procs. This also works on the Inherit. All these work on the Inherit, and she actually becomes a ridiculously good parent and an option to go for pretty much any backliner. You could consider it as a pace chaser or late surger even. And it's really nice. I mean, this becomes a great parent. This becomes a really great Uma. And it now basically makes her ultimate fully work in the acceleration zone. And she is rather powerful. She already was rather powerful because her ultimate is rather track agnostic. Tokai Teo gets a massive consistency buff. Basically, the condition becomes the precondition now at any point in the late race instead of the final straight. This ultimate was very finicky because she's normally a medium and long horse, and basically after that final corner, everyone starts to spread out, and your vision cones, which is what you use to get the overtake target, basically it's a combination of your speed and your vision cone, basically, if you were wide swinging or if everyone else was wide swinging and you were in a rail, you wouldn't have an overtake target, and this ultimate became very, very finicky. Now, basically, the precondition says at any point in the late race, you can go and have this condition, and then you will proc. You will have the overtake target, and then you will proc it on the final straight. This means one, it's like consistent timing no matter what, and two, everyone's usually bunched up at the frame that the late race starts, so most likely before everyone starts hitting their acceleration, you will have an overtake target because you hit your acceleration, so now you are moving faster and you have someone within your field of view, so you should be able to do the precondition a lot easier than having a wide swing and like gambling on whether or not you pick the right lane to still see somebody to pass. Also in the pace chaser position, normally by the time the final corner ends and you're on the final straight on a lot of these medium tracks, you would already be in first place, and you're basically trying to head off all the late surgers and end closers at that point, which also made this ultimate rather finicky for pace chasers as well. Tokateo gets a massive buff, and also this does apply to the parent as well, and this is a 0.45, which means it becomes a 0.25 speed ultimate. Fuji Kaseki is kind of the same thing, some different buffs, but basically this ultimate's rather finicky, as we saw on the Mile CM. Two things are changing. First of all, it becomes 300 meters left or less now instead of the final straight, which means on mile tracks in particular, it's completely safe, and on short tracks, it's still a decent option because it doesn't have to late proc anymore. It can just instantly proc. So front runners and pace chasers, it's usually pretty good. The second thing is, instead of having somebody have to follow you on that final straight, which is the same problem as Tokateo, where everyone is spread out at that point, you can now do it at any point in the late race as a precondition. It would then go and proc at that 300 meter mark. Okay, so you just need to be in first through fourth position while somebody is following you in any point in the late race. So for front runners and pace chasers in particular, and late surgers and end closers who hit their accelerations quite hard, usually when the late race starts, everyone's still bunched up and they have not chosen their lane, so it's more likely that you are being followed, which allows this ultimate to be much more consistent. Again, this is a 0.45, which means the inherit also is affected, and it's usually a very good inherit specifically for front runners and pace chasers. Gonna grab a drink. Measure McQueen. They basically add a bonus to it where you have on long tracks you get plus 0.1. The sufficient HP for final leg is really just making sure that you get value from it, because if you don't have the HP, you can't spurt, which means you don't really get anything in the late race. So instead, it's just a little fail safe. The big thing is on long tracks, this becomes a 0.25 inherit and a 0.45 on Measure McQueen herself. So quite good. Has still the same problems on corner 4 tracks, but if it's a corner 3 track or if it's a spurt track, stuff like that, it's usually pretty good in general. Now, especially on long tracks, where most of them are, I think there's only 2 tracks that are not that are not spurt tracks. So usually this will be pretty good as a 0.25 inherit or 0.45 on herself. Anime McQueen basically removes all the mumbo jumbo about HP percentage and trying to tune, and instead is now just be first through fourth in the late race. Now it's technically a little bit weaker than Measure McQueen on longs, but the additional duration of seconds, as long as there's somebody that's close to you, which should be pretty much like you're in the late race, someone's going to be close to you at some point. If you're in the front half of the pack on the final corner or later, this is a good 0.35 6-second ultimate. It's technically better than the standard rate of 0.35 5 seconds. So all you have to do is just be in front half of the late race at the final corner. Really, who cares about the HP? She is a lot more consistent, and I honestly think she's a usable target. Maybe not as meta as Measure McQueen Inherit will be, but just regular Anime McQueen, if you like running her, she seems to be perfectly fine. Biwa Hayahide gets one of the most ridiculous buffs in my opinion. All of the stuff about passing and stuff is removed from it, and instead, all you have to do is just exist. Yeah, if you touch the front half of the pack, you proc win QED now. I guess on corner 4 tracks, that's worse for front runners and pace chasers because it just doesn't work anymore. But, I mean, even late surgers and end closers can take this, and you just get value from it from touching 4th place at some point. And if you don't rush, you get a bonus 0.1, which is one of the easiest conditions to have, because on late surges and end closers, you're not wanting to rush anyways because of Measure Dober ult. So Biwa Hayahide just has a guaranteed 0.35 5-second ultimate no matter what, as long as you touch the front half of the pack at some point, which I know it's a hot take to have, but you kind of have to touch the front half of the pack to win at some point. before 0 meters. So yeah, I think she's good. Presence from Axe doesn't really change anything in CM. This is kind of more for, I think, League of Heroes and for practice rooms and stuff. And technically it changes 5v5 because it's now 5th place, but it changes it to order rate in 50 instead of order rate in 40. So you have to maintain the top half instead of 4th, but the problem is that it does round down. So I believe in CM, it still goes to 4th place as before. It's just in 5v5, if you're into that, it now is 5th place, I believe, which makes it more consistent. So still a pace chaser and a frontrunner ultimate. Go first forever. Very good. Now it basically, you're allowed to rush now. You just have to not late start. So as long as you don't late start, which you probably are getting, I guess you don't have concentration in kit. So when concentration in Grand Live is a thing, it makes it a lot nicer for you. But as long as you don't late start on the final straight and you're in the top 3 at some point, you will get a 0.35 5-second ultimate. And if you maintain the first 3 positions, which is in other words known as being a front runner, that is good. You get a bonus 0.1, which makes the inherit a bonus 0.2, which makes this a late race ultimate for front runners in general, and also a good option. However, V-Bourbon is still very, very powerful, which means that it's very tough to recommend this character for people who don't want to go and high roll the fact that you have taking the lead. So a lot of effort on this character, and her ultimate is late race, but still, I mean, it's a 0.45. I mean, you can't really complain about that. Rice Shower Mains Rejoice, because Blue Rose Closer basically has the same treatment that Fujikaseki and what's her name? The other one had, which is basically the condition becomes the precondition in the late race. Most likely in the late race, you will pass somebody because you hit your excel, and that means this ultimate gets a lot more consistent. As simple as that. It's still a 0.35 5-second ultimate, but honestly, this is quite a powerful ultimate in general still. I like just the fact that it's on a final straight late race ultimate. It's a nice little closer, and you can focus on your mid race, and Blue Rose Closer is just a lot better because of that, because you don't got to pass somebody on the final straight. Schwartz, which is Asian Flash, can now late start. So as long as you don't rush, you should be fine, and you proc this. If you are also basically exist as a late surger, which is just saying anywhere from 3 through 7, you get a bonus 0.1. So this becomes a usable inherit as long as you are expecting to be in the mid pack. And for Asian Flash herself, she is expecting to be in the mid pack as well to get that bonus 0.45. It's basically track agnostic. Actually, technically, it's the final straight, so miles and sprints, it's a little bit tough. But as long as you do not rush, you are allowed to late start now. And it's just, good. I don't know how else to say it. Guten Appetit also now only needs to pass 2. So for Asian Flash Valentine, it's a little bit better, not particularly too much useful, but it does have the extra 1 second over the other one. Tosin Jordan has a lot of different changes. Basically, under pressure, which is someone is attempting to pass you, only needs to happen for 1 second. You also can be 1st through 4th now instead of 2nd through 3rd. Or, remember this is an or, you have an overtake target now. So before, you had to either be following somebody or being followed or pressured. Now the pressure window is shorter, so it's more likely to proc, and now you only need an overtake target. You don't actually need to overtake them, which helps a lot because this ultimate is the speed required to overtake somebody. So unless you had another really strong speed skill, it was very tough to pass somebody without this to proc this ultimate. I thought this ultimate was rather consistent before, and now it's incredibly, incredibly consistent because it's just 1st through 4th and target somebody, which I think any backliner is basically going to do as a formality. Meisho Dodo is really interesting because I already thought she was just a really, really funny gamble acceleration ultimate. Now, it's still only 0.1 acceleration on Inherit, but you can just go and do this on the final straight and still get the speed, which is really, really nice. So still a little finicky because you have to pass somebody on that final corner, which means you have to hit some other acceleration and chain into it. But now it's on certain tracks like the mile tracks that have like literally 33 meters of corner. Now you can actually go and pass slightly late because you hit like your on your left, or you hit your, I guess your pace chaser, so your neck and neck, and then you will go and pass somebody and kind of chain it into the acceleration for 8.5. So Meisho Dodo actually gets quite strong as well. Bark Roll of Blessings, you get in a bonus second, which kind of puts it on par with the other ultimates in the game. Remember, this is a 0.45 ultimates, which means it is, a fairly consistent 0.25 inherit for your late race speed, especially on front runners, because this does work in first place. Arrows, Wishful Shadows, Disperse. Some people thought that this was a nerf. I don't particularly understand why, but they added a second to its duration. But basically, it's now, instead of being, how do I put it? It procs on the final corner or later no matter what, and instead of having to be pressured, you can now be pressured at any point in the late race, which means on long tracks where you're on corner 3, when you're on corner 3, it will not proc, when you're on corner 3 and you are pressured by somebody, it will proc on that final corner, whereas before it wouldn't proc at all because the condition had to be you being pressured on final corner. And we know from skills like Unyielding, you don't really want to be passed on the final corner or later because you most likely are losing the race at that point. So I don't see how this is a nerf. Someone in the comments can say why. Obviously, corner 4 tracks get worse for her because this basically immediately procs now. But I think this is a buff for Festival Rudolph. Break it down, you now get that 0.1 acceleration that people were talked about on the release, that eventually this is good. This is now good now. So if you pull through this character, this is now your long inherit on front runners for, basically as an alternative to angling and scheming. Flowery Maneuver can now late pass its final corner or later, so it works on miles and straights now that really only have that little 33 meter of final corner. It's still a supplementary excel because you need something else to proc in order for you to pass somebody, separating yourself for backliners, but target speed for front runners, for pace chasers as well. Rice Shower Vampire. Every rose has its thorns, I'm pretty sure, not wings. I don't remember exactly. That was a translation thing. You get 0.25 target speed, which makes you have a mid-race ultimate that gets value, including having, recovery. So it's a 0.55 recovery with target speed. It's like Agnes Tachyon. It's just quite good in general. Now, it gets shredded in the inherit, but it's just a good ultimate on her now. She actually has value. All right, going to grab one more drink. Sorry, my voice is dying. I'm going to try to make it through it, but here are the skill changes. I've categorized them. For green skills, there's one green skill, which is Yodo Invicta, which is on Measure Odober. Now has plus 60 speed stat, so you could even actually, if you really want to and you're really struggling with parents, you could grab this as early as possible to try to get the plus 60 speed to help you out, but honestly, you probably don't. But it just goes and it adds a ton of stats on Kyoto for Measure Odober. Straight velocity skills, Beeline Burst and Straightaway Adept gets a plus 0.6 duration, which puts them on par with all the other skills in the game, basically. So straights and corners now are 3 seconds, are on 3 seconds already, and now this adds that 25% bonus to these other skills to put it on par. There's a bunch of consistency improvements to recoveries. Breath of Fresh Air, Straightaway Recovery, Cooldown, and Deep Breath are now all viable, and you can feel free to take these because now it specifies the mid-race straight. There's always only one mid-race straight, and it picks a random point on it, rather than before picking a random straight, which means before it could proc on the first straight, which means that you wouldn't get full value from it, and you could proc on the final straight, which obviously stamina doesn't really matter on the final straight because it's after the spurt calculation. Now it's guaranteed mid-race, which makes Breath of Fresh Air, so stuff like, Vodka Card and Vodka are now viable things to go and grab your what's it called, your recovery for the longer tracks, which in Grand Lab I think really only changes things on the speed cards, but we'll see from there. Iron Will is still quite tough to trigger because you still got to be blocked in the early or mid race, so it's not guaranteed, which is not great for a recovery skill, but it does at least give you some lane movement speed to try to get unblocked. I don't think it's really that effective, but we shall see in the time to come. Adrenaline Rush just gets a bonus 0.35 target speed. I don't think you're really taking the skill anyways, but it's kind of funny. That's basically a half gold speed skill due to its duration, and it's just kind of slapped onto the basically gold recovery at that point. Serenity should be incredibly consistent, so if you are an Ayabi player, you can take your recovery after this patch. Now it just requires an Uma to be close to you ahead for 1 second or more, which basically should happen at some point in the mid-race, rather than just being blocked. Being blocked before was really tough, and now you just have to basically be able to proc slipstream. This is what it is. This is a recovery that is tied to the slipstream condition, so it's rather good. Line weight for late surgers is a lot better because now it's just 4th through ninth instead of 5th through ninth. I wouldn't say it's 100% consistent, but when you proc Uma.Stand, sometimes you were just in 3rd, 4th place the whole time, and then it wouldn't proc. Now it's a lot easier to proc, honestly. Relax for late surgers as well, 4th through ninth as well, and a random point in the mid race, whereas before it would just be a random point in the late race. Obviously, late race is not really that good because it's after your spurt calculation. So if you didn't have enough stamina, you just simply won spurt. Now it's just a random point in the mid race, so it's basically the opposite of prepared to not prepared to pass. Preferred position. So it's basically the late surger version of preferred position for the back half of the pack. A lot of mid-race velocity buffs. Late surgers, Fast and Furious is now 4th through ninth. We're going to see a lot of these skills, and the really good thing about this is that now you're allowed to push up in the pack. Before we had to stay in the back half of the pack and surge in the late race. Now we can go and proc a lot of our skills from 4th position, so we do not have to be worrying about our mid-race going and putting us out of position, because 6th place is honestly a really, really, really tough position to win the race from, especially against characters like Christmas Oguri with guaranteed accelerations. Keep Going in Full Throttle has minus 0.2 HP recovery instead of the previous minus 0.4. Basically, this just saves 100 stamina on longs and medium tracks. It depends on the duration of the race, but it makes it actually viable on mediums, I would say. You only really have to overstand by about 75 or so, whereas before it was like 170, which was kind of insane to do. Burning Soul and Fighting Spirit now has position requirements of 3rd through 7th rather than 4th through 6th. I thought this was rather consistent on Pace Chasers and Late Surgers, honestly, because most likely you were at some point in the early to mid race just passing somebody, which would trigger this. But now this is even better because it's 3rd through 7th. A lot of acceleration skill buffs. This was kind of the most of them. Rushing Gale now has speed, and the times that it misprocs, it can still choose the wrong straights, but when it does, it just is a white skill that's inefficient, so at least you can go and gamble knowing that if it fails, you do get at least some value. This is also very important for if you're trying to instant proc a, how do I put it? If it chooses the first straight and it procs immediately, you basically PDM break because of the target speed, and then you hit a massive amount of acceleration. So the point of this is on mile tracks that only have 2 straights like this, you can go and take this, you can go, and if it procs in the late race, you basically get an on your left proc or a head-on proc or neck and neck proc. And if it procs in the early race, it could go and proc ridiculously early or proc in the transition from the early race to mid race. And if it procs immediately, it's going to PDM break you perfectly and give you a massive amount of acceleration. That's going to put you really, really, really far up on this one. This now becomes a gambling option that really goes for the people who really just want to gamble, honestly, on the tracks that Uma.Stand that doesn't work very well. Late surgers also get the 4th through 9th treatment on your left and Slick Surge. Now it's the same thing. On your left becomes good. It also becomes the first half of the late race, which makes, especially on medium tracks, it a lot more viable. Before, outside of miles and sprints, this basically would be like a 1 out of 10, like a 1 out of 8 gamble because of how long that late race section is. Now it's the first half of it, which means usually you will get some value out of it. It basically makes like a 2,200 meter track or 2,400 meter track, a 1,200 meter track in distance. And on sprints, we know it's very good. On your left is just very good in general. So now basically those 2,400 meter medium tracks are those sprint tracks, and things are just a lot better, especially in miles and sprints where it already was good. This becomes like a near perfect proc excel for late surgers. The big one again is the 4th through 9th for the same reason as Fast and Furious. You can now just actually go and build mid-race on late surgers and not have to worry about not procking your ultimate as much. The same thing happens with Pace Chasers for neck and neck. Neck and neck becomes random first half of late race, which is the same thing. So it's just much, much more consistent. From the Brink gets the same treatment, and in addition to it also becoming the first half of the late race, it does get the position requirements of 4th through 9th rather than the previous 5th through 9th, and an increase to 1.8 seconds, which before it was weaker than all the previous excels because it was only 1.2 seconds, which means it is basically a medium bound on your left clone, particularly for the end closer position as well. So Pace Chasers get something, late surgers get something, and end closers get something as well with From the Brink on mediums. Dauntless is still a little bit tough for late surges because it's basically still a bad Rad Star, but when Rad Star goes away, perhaps you take Dauntless or Fearless, but its position requirements are now 3rd through 7th instead of 4th through 6th, and its duration is increased by about 25%, which makes it rather good. Sorry. Got a lot to go through. Stormwind Drung and Master Gambit is a lot better. It is still wonky because you still need to be in the back half of the pack, but you can be in the back half of the pack at the moment the late race starts, which is a lot more of just a lobby gamble than now where you had to effectively pass somebody on the back half of the pack, which was like almost never going to happen, let's be honest, because you want to go and proc Daring Strike and like Gold Ship Ultimate and push forward in the pack. It's still a little wonky because you really want to be in the front half of the pack, but at least this makes it so that you get value in it in the positions where you need the speed to happen. This also gets what will later be called the homestretch haste. The homestretch haste effect, which is basically it changes to the first half of the last spurt rather than the total of the late race as well. So instead of random point in late race, it's the first half of the last spurt, which means it also can't be eaten by the acceleration zone. A lot of things make this skill better. I think you take it if it's on the character, you don't seek it out. But it's tough to go. We're going to have to test this one. Turbo Sprint now chooses only the late race straight, which means that on straight tracks, on miles and sprints, it is a viable option as a gamble. Remember, it is basically the entirety of the straight though, so it is a massive gambling option. A lot of the other gambling options have gotten a lot more consistent than this one. However, this is a 3-second, remember that, so it is a very, very high roll option basically. In Mile Maven now does not have that dead zone that I was talking about on the Taiki Shuttle card video. It requires front half of the pack still, but it now is in the second half of the early race rather than the full part of the early race, so the accumulate time 5 seconds will not be put into effect and it will not brick it like 30% of the time. So Mile Maven becomes a lot better. Unyielding and Steadfast is still cope in my opinion. Even if you are pressured for 2 seconds, which means that you are going to be passed, you're still going to be passed. And yes, this may help you fight against it, which is kind of the point of the skill, but you usually still are an end closer passing you, and it's very, very tough to suggest the skill when it's from a position that you normally will be using. I still think this is a niche skill that you take if you have extra skill points after you grab the rest of your mid-race and late-race skills. Step on the gas and acceleration, which was previously a skill that almost gave you nothing, let's be honest, because it would proc super early, now procs at the 50% mark. But we know from Gold City that you still would proc this rather early if you're going to proc it. But now it's a pass in the middle of the race, which on certain mile tracks, that pass is difficult to do, I would say, on that final corner. So on the tracks where the final corner is after the 50% mark, you might pick this up if you really want to gamble. But the thing is, man, there's so many acceleration options in the game. Why would you choose this one that's like, I mean, I guess I still have to test it, but it does not seem like it's going to be good still because you should still be passing people. Thunderbolt Step is they remove the position requirement completely, so you can pick this on front runners and pace chasers, but, you know, it's still like a 1 in 10, so it's just a gambling option. Overwhelming Pressure does have acceleration now, so it is now basically Special Week's old ultimate. It's good because Special Week old ultimate was good as well. A little bit less efficient still, but you should be getting at least some value when you pass somebody early, which is what you should be doing anyway. So it kind of, like I said, it's Special Week old ultimate. It's a supplementary acceleration speed hybrid that goes and attaches to your primary acceleration to make it even more powerful. Reignition, which is gold of Second Wind as well. Now, instead of not having to be in, first place in the mid-race and basically giving you a random like 1 in 10 to go and give you anything, instead now is a random late race gamble acceleration for front runners that now drains your stamina. It seems rather weird because I guess you can cope and hopefully acceleration 0.2 and match your angling and scheming and perhaps like a Kidus in Black ultimate. Maybe you take this on Kidus in Black if you are trying to go and win from second place and hit the 0.6 rather than the opponent hitting the 0.4. I see niche uses for this, but honestly, again, you're a front runner player. You probably should be just going and adding more mid-race to try to hit that first place. There's 1 or 2 late race velocity buffs, but the big one is Come What May now has an additional 0.6 seconds for a 25% increase. So as a Tikezo player, when Steep on Ticket has this innately, and also if you are running Agnes Tachyon Speed, which you should be probably, you will get the skill for the medium tracks no matter what. So it makes it equivalent to the straights and corners and the new Beeline Burst. In Body and Mind, just like the previous skill I was talking about, can't get clipped now because it is now in the first half of the last spurt rather than the entirety of the last spurt. So now Homestretch Haze cannot go and choose the final frame of the race and give you absolutely nothing. It can only choose the first half of that final spurt, which means you most likely will get full value on, I would say, 99% of tracks. The longest of long tracks, you can still get clipped if it late procs, but honestly, it makes the skill a lot better. And that's all the skill changes that I know of. Sorry, my voice was dying the whole time. And also, it's been short notice, so I know it's been kind of all over the place, but hopefully, at the very least, if these are released on second anniversary, you'll know what's going on. I'll have a link into the description of all of these as well. Remember that these are subject to change. They could choose to put in some of these. They could choose to put in none of these, except for like 3 of them. They did say it was the position changes, so maybe it's just the ones, or the condition changes, so maybe it's just the ones that change their conditions and not the ones that change their value, but I think they're just going to throw all of them in on 7.1, but we will have that notice on 7.1, so appreciate you all for watching. Overall, I really like this. I mean, the late surgers got a lot of their skills that I already was taking because, you know, I'm a degenerate gambler in this game, but they just got better, and now I can just build more mid race, and I don't have to go and search for NSM every single CM. So I have other options as a late surger. I think pace chasers got better. I think end closers got slightly better. I think front runners got slightly better. Mainly front runners got better because of the Uma inherits, and late surgers and pace chasers got better because of the head on and on your left changes. And then end closers, you know, they get better because of most of the ultimates that require passing and require front half of the pack, basically for them, are basically guaranteed accelerations in the positions that they are winning. So everyone gets a little bit of a buff here. I enjoy it, and I'm glad that they're bringing these out early because especially a lot of the people who have the Oshis do it. Also, I forgot to mention that, hey, we get casual outfits. A lot of people like that. I wouldn't mind seeing Tickets one. I haven't seen it on the website, so I hope she has one. But if you get bond level 11, which is rather hard to get, it's a lot of hearts compared to 10, but you should have it for your Oshis. You should get a casual outfit for the characters that have casual outfits, and then at level 12 you get 50 bonus carrots as a little bonus as a achievement for maxing out their new increase in bond. So this has been the 624 patch notes skill procs addendum. I appreciate you getting this far if you have. I will hopefully be releasing the Throne video later tonight. I know I'm double uploading, but honestly, I was not expecting a monumental patch to proc at 10:30 last night. So appreciate you all. Take care. Bye-bye.